So as we saw in the last episode, the effects of Adam and Eve's rebellion against God's perfect order and his perfect word to stay away from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, there's become consequences for what they have done. They rebelled against God's holy order, and he did not just wink at their sin. Like, there was actual consequences for what they did. There was a promise of redemption built into that. Remember, we talked about how he said to Eve, I will put enmity between you and the snake, and between your seed and his seed, and your seed will crush his head, even though he's going to strike his heel. He's actually talking about this plan of redemption, that even though the enemy is going to try and rise up one day against one who's going to come through the seed of Eve, that God-man, Jesus, is going to crush the head of the snake. It's a very different episode for a different day, but there is a promise built into the curse. But God does not wink at our sin, and there is consequences for the curse. And so we saw how there was this hardship that was going to come upon humanity. They were no longer allowed to live in the Garden of Eden. They were no longer allowed to stay inside of perfection and live forever. Death had entered. For Eve, there was going to be pain in childbirth, which I think can encompass a lot of different things, but there was this pain and there's this difficulty inside of her life in that area. And also there was going to be this friction, this tension between her and her husband, which I think we all can attest to. There is often tension and conflict between guys and girls, between men and women. That's very much so a part of everyday life now, and that's part of the curse. For men, there was going to be this toiling, this curse of trying to find a way to feed yourself, which means you gotta go to work, and it's hard. It's not always easy. But there is a promise of redemption. Then we fast forward hundreds of years, and we see that mankind is not doing so hot. They're not doing so great left to themselves. In the days of Noah, which is several hundred years after Adam and Eve, it says in today's reading in chapter 6, verse 5, the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of his heart, every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Man, what was that like for God to have created this perfect world that now, because of sin, is overrun by every single evil thought and evil inclination of the man's heart? And there's a consequence for that. And so God decides to just completely wipe out humanity. But remember, there's that promise that the seed of the woman, right? So there's going to be humanity that comes through. Creation is over. God is not going to recreate mankind and humanity. And so a family is saved. And Noah is the man. And Noah's family are the ones who are going to be saved from the flood. But who's Noah? All of a sudden, we hear this Noah guy. In 6 verse 8, it says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. He was blameless among the people of his time, is what it says in verse 9. Like, how in the world are you blameless in a time when every inclination of a man's heart is to do evil? Yet Noah was. And Noah was invited into God's plan. God didn't need Noah, but he decided to invite him and to let him be a part of the plan. And I think that's beautiful. Noah was not a hero. I mean, he was used mightily of the Lord, but this story is not about Noah. This story is about God and how he moves forward his plan, and how there was redemption and there was rescue inside of the earth, and the animals were rescued as well. And there's something really beautiful about that even when the whole earth was wicked. And so for us, let's just think about, what does it take to be blameless in an evil age? Life is not easy right now. I know that there's a lot of things that are evil, and our inclination is to actually do evil as well. But Noah provides a really good example of how you can stand up against just the go with the flow mentality, and against the evil that surrounds us all the time, to seek to be blameless even in a dark age. That's today's challenge.